love the idea of making a Thomas book, especially a book that isn't Railway Series related. The amount of potential there is for experimenting with art styles for a Thomas book seems endless to me. I would love it if a Thomas book had the style of a comic book, or a detailed toy but with realistic background style, or just something completely new. And something that would actually stay true to its roots too and not venture off too far like All Gems Go does. Now for the most part, this has actually been done. I feel like Ken Scott's art style or the My Thomas Story Library series, these look pretty good and they are pretty different. I've talked about these two styles previously, and one video was better than the other, and in those videos, I didn't like the styles. I have actually grown to like these over time, and my opinion on the Thomas Story Library series has completely changed from me thinking it's boring to me actually really liking it and appreciating its art style. And for Ken Scott's art style, while I don't entirely like it, I still think it's pretty ugly. I can now appreciate it for being different and having a new feel to it now. I used to want all the books to try to be realistic like the Railway series ended up being, which of course I still want, but now I'm more open to different styles, as long as they keep the core focus of what makes a Thomas style work. So you might be surprised to hear that I actually like the My First Thomas art style. And yeah, it kind of does feel like a baby's art style at times, but you know, it's pretty neat. I actually learned through the research for this video that there is more to My First Thomas than the books. There's toys and merchandise, and it's all pretty cool. So let's get into the video. My First Thomas started off as a toy line. This toy line was made for young kids to have bigger, simpler looking toys to play with because you don't want a little kid to get a headache having to look at detail. This line is also known as the Golden Bear toy line, or just Golden Bear Thomas toys. I'm pretty sure these toys were easy to make because of how little detail they actually put into most of it. They also made the wheels very simple, and it actually looks pretty good. I do like the Golden Bear style. It's a neat idea for a toy range, and it works well because mainly it's a toy. But wow, they really messed up on some stuff. Like for the Children's Truck's faces, how are they just this small? How were they consciously able to make a face this small and be like, yep, ship it? They also got colors completely wrong. Like, Sir Tom Hatt's iconic blue car is now his yellow car. Am I the only one to say that this is stupid? Why the yellow car? Why the yellow car? Nobody wants the yellow car. And the express coaches are just something entirely new. And Bulstrode is now yellow and Blue Cranky, and wow, how did they mess up so many colors? And if this was intentional, just why would you intentionally make your toy of a character less recognizable than the character is supposed to look like? I don't get this. Why would you want to do it? And with that out of the way, I actually really like that we have different colors of characters. Like, yeah, Bulstrode being yellow and Cranky being blue, totally a dumb decision, but wow, do they look cool. I gotta admit, Blue Cranky is something I did not know I needed. Now, I do have a small fan theory about this. Whoever made Bulstrode and Cranky might have been colorblind, or they just used the wrong color of plastic when making them. And the Golden Bear higher-ups just got a brainwave of excitement and decided it would be so cool to have Cranky but blue, so they shipped it. It's not like they couldn't use gray for Cranky because Toad literally exists and he is gray. So I do not know what they were thinking. This line did have a pretty good looking Sir Tom Hatt figure though, and it did introduce something that rivals the milk tanker. They introduced the one, the only Sugar Tanker. And what makes the Sugar Tanker even better is that the Sugar Tanker ended up appearing in a Thomas book, and we got a look at how it looks in a more detailed art style. This toy range, I guess, needed something to advertise it, because we ended up getting My First Thomas book line was made for young kids, and the stories weren't all that special. A lot of them just focused on Thomas as really the only main character in the book. The style was pretty nice and started pretty consistent, but you could tell that certain artists put more detail into it compared to others, leading to a ton of the books to feel inconsistent with the level of detail. A few of these books have some stories made by Christopher Awdry, and some of them are just retelling of stories made by Wilbur Awdry, but with changing the titles. For example, we have the Troublesome Trucks, but now it's called Thomas and James and the Troublesome Trucks. Not like that's hard to say or anything. There were more books that did this, and I don't really have a problem with these retellings, and seeing the same story with a different art style is actually kind of cool to see. But My First Thomas books ended up ending sometime in the early 2000s, and as a brand, My First Thomas, while the name was used a couple times, the style didn't truly return until now in this new toy line, we got an even more baby-looking style, and it was made in 2017. Nobody really cared about Rolly Pals, and it was pretty deserved. All there was to it was colorful tracks and designs that looked so kiddie, it didn't have much appeal for any existing Thomas fan who wasn't like 2. If this toy line was all we got and Rolly Pals was just that weird semi-revival of My First Thomas, literally no one would have cared. Except me, because I'm making a video about this. And I also don't think that many people were really wanting My First Thomas to come back either. I don't think people really cared about it or even thought about it really. But that is not all we got of Rolly Pals. We ended up getting a whole series based on these toys. And seeing how the toy line is already made for babies, you can just imagine what the show is like. It's a bright, colorful, toy-like, harmless show that has really nothing to it. We learned about educational things like how many numbers exist and shapes exist, and there's always a song in each episode because we can't have a kid show without poorly made, thought out songs. One thing I do actually like about this is that we do get the CGI voice actors in this series, which I prefer instead of getting like kids to voice them. I was going to do a full review on this series, but I didn't because there wasn't too much to talk about really. But it did make me realize how weird the faces look. They look too baby-like, and they all kind of look the same. Like Thomas looks like Rosie, but with pink. I am so glad Rolly Pals is over and that it didn't even last long because there wasn't anything to it and it was pretty harmless. It was kind of look at what was to come though. Like a lot of what it does is a lot of what All Engines Go does, and it's honestly pretty insane looking at the similarities here. And for My First Thomas, that is kind of all we have. We don't have anything new for My First Thomas. There's no toys or books or any sort of series like the Railway Pals got. I honestly think that My First Thomas is not that great, and it doesn't do anything, but it also doesn't harm the franchise. It's just there and not that interesting, and I can appreciate what it did for young readers by giving them repackaged Railway series stories. And I do like that we have a blue Cranky, but besides that, that is kind of it, and it's not too special, and its semi-revival with Railway Pals isn't that special either. My First Thomas will always be the Thomas series that existed for babies, and for what we got out of it, it was pretty meh. Well, that'll be it for the video. Thank you all for watching. I made this script at 2 a.m. and now it's 5 a.m. and me reading this at 8 p.m. Makes me think that, wow, I really did waste my time.